Hey guys, we are back with another week of It's Not Complicated, only for sure this week it is complicated.
It is very complicated.
I'm Jenny Williams. I'm the senior pastor at Central United Methodist Church, and here with my two co-hosts.
I'm Chase. I'm the executive pastor.
I'm Virginia Brown. I am the college pastor and the director of the Wesley.
We're glad you are with us. And remember, this is the Bible, one of our most sacred and harrowing texts. So, as always, if you are listening with someone who might have sensitive ears, please be on guard.
Woohoo.
All right, let's go.
Yikes. That's all I have to say about today.
The Bible says don't judge unless you're in the book of Judges.
Wow.
You guys, chapter 4 of Judges gets intense.
One of my favorites of all time.
Deborah.
No, well, Deborah's great,
Yeah.
but Yale or JL, amazing.
Yeah. Okay, so we start with our increasingly infamous refrain. The Israelites did what was evil in the eyes of God.
The circle again.
Yeah. So there was that, 80 years of peace before, and now it's bad again. And so now King Jabin, or Yabin, of Canaan overtakes the Israelites, and his army commander is Sisera
Great name.
Lipschitz.
Sisera, yes. Yeah.
Anyway, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah,
What is
Chicago,
happening?
the musical.
Pop six, shoot. Pop six.
Sisera
Lipschitz. Anyway, that's fine. He had it coming. That's appropriate, though. So Sisera has 900 chariots, and he brings all these chariots in and oppresses the Israelites for 20 years. So they, of course, do what they always do after they get themselves in trouble. They're like, God, we're so sorry. We need you. So God raises up a prophet, a judge, a leader named
Deborah.
Hey, girl.
Which is interesting because it's prophet, not prophetess, which I thought was interesting.
Fair.
Is it this the masculine verb, right?
Right.
So
I don't know if that's just I don't know if that's if
that
there's a
leadership,
distinct,
maybe like the role.
probably, but I also don't know if there was a if they distinguished between that and Hebrew. I don't know if there were two separate words. Probably.
And this is our first female prophet too, so it's kind of like here we go.
This is a big deal.
It is.
Wife of Lapidoth.
Yeah. Or
Great
so
name.
I love how they said this. In my translation, it said wife of Lapidoth, but then it had a note that said, or it could also be translated woman of torches. And I was like, why would you make this woman a wife when she could be a woman of torches?
Exactly. Yes.
So Deborah, woman
on
of torches.
fire.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, this is a good story.
Well,
It is.
what I thought was interesting is that the Israelites knew to go up to her, right? So, and the question is how do they know to go up to her for judgment? And just a side note, I found Xena on Prime Time.
Oh, no.
on Prime, and I'm reading.
Xena, warrior princess.
Get those vibes for sure.
Yeah, I am living my best 90s life. And all of her Amazon glam, she doesn't hold a cubic to these women that we're about to talk about. I'm telling you.
Hold a cubit.
There were so many references there.
Man.
I did love Xena, though. I really did.
It was a cool show.
It was. So anyway, Xena, also known as Deborah, woman of torches, hops on over to Barak, who's the leader of the Israelite army, and she's like, "Look, you've got to go and handle this army, this Canaanite army." And Barak's like, I don't know. I guess I'll go if you go.
I love this
Yes.
because that tells you how awesome Deborah was.
Yeah.
Where he's like, I'll just do what she does.
Yeah,
That's a big step forward.
I'll have what she's having.
Yeah.
And then Deborah's like, that's fine. I'll go with you. But you should know that when we win, the credit will go to a woman.
That's right.
Which I think is it's a little foreshadowing. Which woman?
Ooh.
Right?
Yeah.
Right here, it sounds like Deborah, but hold on.
wait.
There's Myrrh. That's a Christmas reference. Never mind.
Stop doing that. We have not watched Muppet Christmas. You have got to stop it. So anyway, so they go out. Barak and army kills all the other army, the Canaanite army, the 900 chariots, except Sisera escapes. And I would like you to tell this story.
So Sisera escapes, okay? And he's like, what am I going to do? You know what? This tent looks really good. I'm going to go hide in it. Ooh. But little does he know that there's a scheme brewing between, is it Heber? Heber is Jael's or Yale's husband, right?
I think we can just say JL. We are in the
JL.
American South here. Yeah.
Gotcha.
If we're going to call him Heber.
Anyway, the bad guy,
Sisera,
ends up in JL's tent. And JL's like, okay, listen, I got to do something. What am I going to do? I'll just give him something to drink.
Just a nice little refreshment.
Maybe there's some opium or something in it. I don't know.
Who knows?
He goes to sleep and
she puts him under a blanket. She tucks him in.
Under a rug.
She does. Kind of. Yeah, eventually we'll hear the rug. But she's like, okay, he's asleep. She takes a tent peg, and these things aren't small. I mean, they're massive.
Sure.
And then she takes a hammer, and she's like, puts it up to his temple, and then goes, think, and like drives it through his skull.
Savage.
Yeah, I do have a biblical womanhood tattoo that is a skull with a tent peg on it.
I love it because
And then she rolls him up.
fast asleep from weariness, and he died.
And he died.
No. He was
He was.
Yeah, his head was obliterated.
Yeah, and then she rolls him up in the rug, and then she's like, I got to do something
Yeah.
with this. Yeah.
Yeah. Can someone come take care of this now? Yeah. I made a note about biblical womanhood. You know, they always want to keep women like nice and quiet and
No, this is
subservient.
biblical womanhood.
But don't give us a tent peg. Let me tell you that.
That's right. That's right.
So I think, in my opinion, this is the woman who gets credit for defeating
Absolutely.
the armies of Sisera.
Yes. She didn't wake up that morning knowing that she would change history.
No.
But she did.
She did. And JL is a strong name.
Oh, yeah.
I would highly recommend for, baby names.
It is a good one.
It is. Also, I mean, honestly, Sisera is interesting too. But anyway, so in response to this amazing act of just courage and strength, I said courage.
Yeah.
Of courage and strength, Deborah and Barak do what any powerful duo would do.
Of course.
What's that?
A power duet.
Yes.
Love it.
I just was thinking like, hey, I got you, babe. Anyway, that's all in my mind.
Sonny and Cher. I was
Well-
thinking Dolly Parton and
Oh,
Reba McEntire.
yeah.
no, just Islands in the Stream.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Oh, I like the one. Does he love you? Does he love you like he loves me? Like he loves me? You know the one? No, never mind.
If I heard it, probably.
When
yeah.
he's holding me. Really?
I love
It's
Dolly.
a great video.
No,
It is.
yeah. I'm sure it's wonderful. I'll look into that later. So, and then after the song ends, finally, the land was peaceful for 40 years.
And then
But actually, chapter 6 arrives, and of course, dadgummit Israel. They did what was evil in the eyes of the Lord. Did
They
they
did.
not learn their lesson?
Obviously
they
not.
ever learned their lesson?
No, it's just, like I said, it's like a circle.
At least we're not getting reminded of the law.
Oh my gosh.
That
Well,
is
they've
true.
forgotten the law. They don't
Yeah.
even know what the law
have no
is
clue.
anymore. So honestly, a refresher here might be more
It might
appropriate.
be okay.
This time they get taken by the Midianites, which that's Moses' in-laws, right?
Yep.
And why can't we just all get along?
Family
anyway.
reunions, I'm telling you.
The Midianites and Amalekites are kind of like wicked smart, if you know what I'm saying.
Oh, that was good.
Like what?
The
No,
cockies.
I'm not doing it again. But so like every time Israel would go to plant their crops, they would sneak in and destroy their crops. So they like tormented them every season
Yeah.
because they would like destroy the crops, and so Israel's like starving, and they also. For some reason, are just really weakened by this, and so they plunder them in their weakness. And so once again, Israel's like, "Oh God, we're so sorry. Please help us."
Help.
And so God sends this unnamed prophet to tell them that they had messed up. It's like, I love this. Good work, God. And so anyway, but after that, there's this whole God's messenger showing up at the oak of Ophrah, And there at this oak, God, the messenger of God, sees Gideon threshing wheat in a wine press. Now he's doing this. That sounds strange.
Yeah.
This is not like he's not making beer instead of wine. He's actually just trying to hide the wheat from the Midianites because they keep like sneaking in and stealing it.
How dare you?
So, Gideon, it's Gideon's turn this time, and the angel or the messenger says, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." And then Gideon is like, "What? What are you talking about?" And then it's a very Moses experience where Gideon
builds an altar.
Well, yeah, but first he's like, I don't know if I can do it.
Yeah, doubting
Of course.
himself.
Yeah, and because God's like, Gideon, I need you to help lead the people, and he's like, no, I'm so weak, and my clan is so weak. Manasseh, apparently
Yeah.
weak clan.
Manasseh.
Yeah.
He's also the youngest in his family,
He's like the runt.
which is later we're told he has 70 brothers. What in the world?
Whoa.
Stop. Just
Well, I mean,
let's be honest, moms.
Moms.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, obviously plural wives
Jeez, we're not
situation.
thinking one woman had
This is
70
biblical
children.
marriage, Chase.
You know, we have families nearby that had like 19,
19.
plus.
Yeah.
That's true.
Okay, so Gideon asks God for a sign, and in the meantime offers a burnt offering. That's nice. The messenger, then this messenger from God comes up and taps the offering with his staff, and it engulfs it in flames. And so then Gideon is like freaked out. He's like, "Oh, I didn't know you were an angel."
Oh.
And so the angel's like, "Don't be afraid. You won't die." Well, thank you, God. Thanks for that reassurance.
This is interesting. The messengers will do this, and we'll see this again. Like they just show up and they don't do the prefaces. Do not be afraid. But it's later that they find out it was a messenger from God, and
Right.
so it's like, I wonder why.
Well, and I think sometimes these are, angelic beings or are meant to be interpreted that way. But I do wonder how often God just sends.
What if they're an angel sent from heaven and they're
gosh.
making sure you're doing your best? She said no songs today. I'm so sorry.
I mean, that's like the fourth song in 10 minutes. So I wonder too how often God just literally gives a message to a human being to deliver on God's behalf. But here, this is like the real deal because we've got a fire in the pole. That was a silver dollar stitch.
Fire in the hole.
So
good.
God,
get in here.
so after Gideon calms down, God's like, listen, you've got to tear down your father's altar to Baal.
Right. Yeah.
And his Asherah pole. What is wrong with these people?
Asher poles. The worst.
So Gideon does this, but he does it in secret because it's going to make a lot of people mad. He brings 10 of his closest friends. They take down the altar. They take down the Asherah pole. But when the townspeople find out, they figure out who it is, and they are so mad that they are going to execute him. But then Joash, who's Gideon's father, steps in, has a little wise moment, and he's like, listen, this was an affront against Baal. Let's let Baal handle the matter. And so then Gideon gets a new name, Jerubbaal, which means let Baal argue with him.
What a
Wow. Thank you for
name.
that
I'm
little.
so glad that we're not renamed after major events in our lives.
No kidding.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah. Gideon needs another sign from God.
Oh,
I
geez.
mean, good heavens. But so then there's the wool fleece thing.
Yes.
I love this.
Yes.
I love this. So Gideon is unsure of God's calling, and he's like, I'm going to set up a test, and I'm going to get a fleece of wool, and
As you
then
do.
I'm going to ask for the dew to only wet the fleece while the ground stays dry.
Right.
And then it says for the reverse to happen. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
why? What kind of?
Well, yeah,
Why?
so it happens. The first night, the wool is wet, but the ground is dry, and Gideon's like, "Thank you so much, God." But if I may, and, just one more. Don't be mad at me, but just one more time. Can you do that again? But just reverse it.
Yeah.
Wool dry, ground wet, and then I'll know. So okay, it happens. No more excuses,
I'm gonna
Gideon.
go put some wool out
Get
in my
on
yard.
going. Yeah.
I remember hearing this at my grandmother's church, and I'll stay in the weekend with them. And so that night, I put out my
No,
grandmother's
you didn't.
blanket to see if it worked. That next morning, she wanted me to explain why I had done that, and I did. And I was like,
Surely she couldn't even get mad at you.
No, she did. I was like, I'm looking for a sign.
Come on, Grandma.
And she said, I'm about to give you a sign. You're about to be Israel because I'm about to whoop you. Because, they fought with the Lord.
Yeah, we get it. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Okay.
Amazing.
Oh, Mimi.
Lordy. Okay. Chapter 7, Gideon gets ready for battle. But then God has like a little fun with him. God's like, there's really too many people on your side. What? God
It takes them away.
So Gideon has to let anybody who's afraid go on back. So there are 22,000 soldiers that leave, which again, get it together, soldiers.
That's
but whatever.
so many.
There's 10,000 left after this. So Gideon's like, whew, all right, well, we can probably manage with 10,000, I guess. And God's like, well, not yet.
Never.
Let's get down by the creek. Let's do the old creek drinking test. If you go down to the creek and you drink from your mouth like a dog, you're in. It's all right.
But if
you,
Excuse me. Who would do that?
I would. You would bend
This?
over.
I would do this.
Oh yeah,
I would
yeah.
not drink
You can't.
like a
If you're
dog.
listening, we're holding our hands, cupping them, and bringing them to our mouth like a civilized human being.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So then, if they drink from the creek with their hands so that they can still keep watch, God's like, well, that's not the energy I'm looking for. They got to get out. So then, only the old dirty dogs are left, and that's 300 men.
Yeah. Go from 32,000
Yeah. To 300.
300.
God's like, this is perfect. Gideon freaks out a little bit.
I would.
Yeah.
But God's like, listen, if you're really that worried, sneak on down to the camp and just listen to what's happening.
Yeah.
This is so bizarre, y'all. This is anyway, Gideon heads on down. He overhears a Midianite soldier talking about a bad dream that he's had. And it's about this barley loaf of bread that is rolling into their camp and it collapsed a tent. And he's like, man, it was so weird. And his buddy is like, clearly, this can be nothing but a sign that Israel is coming to defeat us.
Rolling bread.
I was like, what is happening?
okay.
Speaking of opium,
Yeah. They were doing something.
or maybe they just ate a pizza after 9 p.m.
Yeah.
Once you're a certain age, that can give you some weird dreams too. But the interpretation was honestly weirder for me. So then we get into the battle. And there are so many specific elements in this story. Gideon's like, follow my lead, do what I do. So they give each guy a trumpet and an empty jar with a torch inside.
I love this. Figure it out, guys.
Yeah, here. And their hands are full.
Yeah.
That's what's hilarious. And they're like,
how do I
well,
work
where do
like
I...
Christmas
trumpet
decorations, like
and a
jars
jar
with
and
little
a torch all at
votive
the same
lights
time?
And they're like
trumpets.
shoving their weapons under their armpits to hold everything. Anyway, and so Gideon's like, when I blow my trumpet, everybody should blow their trumpet, and then we are going to shout for the Lord and for Gideon, because dramatic flair is really important
it
here.
is.
It's drama.
Yeah.
So that's what they do. He doesn't really give instructions on the jars, but we'll get to that because he blows the trumpet. They all blow the trumpet. They smash the jars. They're running through the camp with fire in their hands and trumpets in their other hands. And the Midianites just panic and just leave.
They have jars.
Not the jars.
I think it was the trumpets. Yeah.
They might cut our feet.
Anyway.
Sensitive ears.
So, and then after they run, the Israelites grab some of their clansmen and they chase them out into the desert and finish them off. But we've got a little family interlude here. Meanwhile,
They
because
didn't grab the Ephraimites.
yeah, the Ephraimites
Yeah.
are so mad. They are super mad because Gideon went into battle and did not invite them.
How wooed.
They had some FOMO for sure.
For sure. Well, apparently this might have been because when they go into battle, they get to, whoever does the battling gets to bring home the spoils.
Which makes sense
Yeah.
because if they're have been in a drought season for a while, it's
Yeah.
we need some help over here too.
And so Gideon's he says this whole thing. Honestly, it was nonsensical to me, but basically what it means is did you not get what you needed?
Were
do
you not entertained?
Exactly. So the Ephraimites, they really don't know what to say to that because apparently they did get a healthy portion of the booty, so to speak. So,
Yes.
yeah. Then moving on, Zeba and Zalmunna sassed Gideon, and he did not like it.
No.
And he didn't have time for that. So he said, I'm going to beat your skin with desert thorns and briars.
That's what Meemaw did.
Go pick
We
your
called it a
switch.
switch. Yes.
I had to pick my switch many a
Like,
time.
you're like,
no.
if it's flimsy, it'll like have lash. But if it's like
You go get a
sturdy,
big one.
Yeah.
Because, like, they aren't. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yikes.
It's a tree branch. Here you go.
I know our families were wonderful people, but this is like straight child abuse.
I love my family. I'm the person I am today because of them.
Yep. Anyway, Penuel does the same thing, sasses Gideon, and he's like, you know what? I'm going to tear down your tower. Gideon is tired. He's hangry. Like, they have got to get him a nap and a bite to eat. And I just want to pause here and say, Chapter 8 of Judges was never included in the VBS version of this story.
Absolutely not.
But interestingly, as hateful as Gideon is being, he's whipping up on everybody. The Israelites are loving this energy. That's exactly what they want in a leader. So they ask Gideon to be in charge, please. And Gideon's like, nope, not me, but the Lord will rule over you. And I'm like, oh, that's good.
Cool.
Good for you, Gideon. And then also Gideon's like, but if you can give me your gold, I will make a priestly vest and we will eventually all worship it and get in trouble for idol worship.
And when I was reading Gideon,
Come on, guys.
I was just thinking about the Gideonites who pass out Bibles and everything. I was like, how did they get this name?
The Gideons.
The Gideonites. That's great. The Gideons. How did they get this name? Well, when it come time to decide the name of the association that was developing, the Gideons, they had a special prayer time. They asked God that God might lead them to select the proper name. And Mr. Knight, who was in the meeting, rose from his knees and said, "We shall be called the Gideons." And then he proceeds to read this story that we're reading right now. And I'm like, why are we called the Gideons? Because they're few, they're untrained.
Okay.
And they're just going out passing out Bibles. Not
Beating people with thorn bushes and briar
you gotta
patches.
well, I was
Watch
gonna say
out.
not with trumpets and jars of light, but just going
That
out.
should be on
and
their,
making
like,
a difference
sigil.
in the world,
Yeah.
But anyway, sorry. Here we go.
Okay, we're in chapter 9.
40 years of peace.
40 years of peace.
And
Woo. And then
I love this.
Gideon's son becomes king, which I thought we weren't doing that.
well, okay, so what's the name? Because I can't say it.
Abimelech.
Abimelech.
It's a great
It's
name.
a great name.
Abimelech.
Yeah.
But also there's other places where we hear this name as a generic name given to all Philistine kings. So Abimelech. So if you read other scripture, if you read other historical writings, that it just means leader.
Okay.
I don't know. I thought it was interesting, and that time frame is usually from Abraham through King David.
Okay.
So just there.
Well,
it is.
it makes sense too if they've like just intermingled with all the tribes that are around there. They're probably picking up names from the other tribes too.
Yeah.
So it could be that they're just calling him that like as a title, or maybe that's what his name was because Gideon was like, I want my kid to be king. You know what I'm saying?
But Gideon was also like, no.
Yeah,
king.
I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of conflicting things here.
So then also it talks about how Gideon had 70 sons. This is where we get that information. I would just like to have some conversations about that, but we'll probably take that offline.
Christmas must have stunk.
Okay. So there is an evil spirit between Abimelech and the lords of Shechem. And it was anyway, there was a bad deal there. There was a guy named Gaul. And I really wanted to make the gall of this guy joke.
How dare he?
Yeah. And he faced off against Abimelech. And then Abimelech defeats Gaul. And then Abimelech moves on to the next place. I can't remember the name of it, but they had a tower there. And this is a horrifying story.
Tower of Shechem.
Mount.
It is the Tower of Terror for real, because 1,000 people are up in this and they just burn it down.
They burn it down.
They do.
Oof. And then he goes on to the next town, and there's another tower there, and he's going to do the same thing Abimelech is. But there's some women that are standing in the tower. Thank God for women,
I
right?
know. Listen.
And they drop a millstone on Abimelech's head. And he's like,
I hate this.
yeah. And Abimelech's laying there, his skull's cracked open, and he's like, hey, dude, can you stab me so that you can say I didn't get killed by a woman?
I mean, how dare you, sir?
I mean,
A woman killed me. Someone stabbed me quick.
Yeah, exactly.
Awful.
So chapter
do better.
10, Abimelech is over. And we have a man named Tola, who's the son of Pua of Dodo. This is so good.
So many great names.
And he judged for 23 years and died. That's all. Enough said is what the Bible said. Enough said. And then Jair, the Gileadite, he judged for 23 years. And he had 30 sons who rode on 30 donkeys, and they had
30 towns.
Yeah.
Then he died and was buried.
That's like a weird thing to flex. Oh, well, I have 30 sons. They each have a donkey
and a
town.
Yeah.
What's that? What's that? My name's Larry. My brother's name's Larry. My other brother's name's Larry.
I don't know.
Okay, never mind.
No, but I mean, yeah.
Isn't that what it is?
Daryl.
Daryl. Yes. Okay. Anyway. Okay. Then Israel does
Evil.
in the eyes of the
circle.
Lord. Yeah.
Every time.
This time they're oppressed by the Ammonites. It's drama. And they even go past out into the across the Jordan. They fight some of the tribes that are out there.
Yeah. Is it, then okay, so here we're verse 10.
Yeah.
I love this part because God's just done, and but God's a little bit sarcastic. It's like, well, why don't you go cry to the other gods who you chosen? Let them deliver you in time of distress. Dead.
Yeah.
And then Israel's like, please save us this time.
Yeah, this time. I was like mad about that. I'm like, God has saved you 37 times in this chapter alone. Anyway, that was chapter 10. Now we're on to chapter 11. And then we've got more sass with Jephthah.
A great name again.
Oh my god. So Jephthah was kind of drove away from like the society. And then, like, the people were like, we need you to help us. And Jephthah was like, aren't you the very ones who rejected me? Why are you coming to me for help in your time of trouble?
Yeah.
Love it.
Well, because Jephthah has kind of a checkered past. His father had a wife and sons, but then his father also had a relationship with his mother, who was a prostitute, I believe.
Yeah.
And so that is why Jephthah gets ostracized, because his family doesn't see him as a legitimate son.
But then the elders come back and say, well, the reason that we turned our backs on you, so one day we could come to ask you to fight.
Okay. That is some gymnastics. But honestly,
Backtracking.
well done on the spin on that one. Yeah.
Gymnastics.
And so, yeah. Exactly. So Jephthah has had a hard time, I'm sure, when he was growing up, but now he's an adult and he's not better. Like, he does not
He's a
overcome
little
adversity.
impulsive.
Yeah. So he's like, okay, I will help you and I will lead you. And they go out, there's some fighting back and forth. And then at some point it says that God's spirit came upon Jephthah, and he was going in and out, like, conquering whatever, I assume. And then I just need us to pay attention to the order of this, because Jephthah makes a vow. So it's after God's spirit is already on him. He swears this oath.
This is the worst.
And what does the oath say?
This is so weird.
Okay.
So he's like,
Go ahead.
it's like, whatever, you know what? When I get home from all of this, whatever comes out the door of my house
First,
is going to be yours, and I will give that to
Why?
you.
as a sacrifice.
And yes, and then like he goes home and it's his daughter.
Well, it would be a family member. I mean,
being out saying, "Daddy, I'm
Yeah.
so glad you're home," and he's like, "My bad."
no,
I
it is. I mean, it is his fault.
Totally
Yes,
stuck my
absolutely.
foot in my mouth.
So hang on a minute. Culturally, it makes sense that he would have thought, if he had a fence or some sort of like perimeter around his housing, his home, that they would have had animals there, livestock, sheep, goats, whatever. But he could have specified.
Yeah.
I'm begging the Bible to just be a little bit more specific.
Come
Anyway, go ahead, Chase.
So he comes and he's like, tells his daughters, like, listen, I made this vow to God and you gotta die. And she was like, it's cool, Pops. Just let me go
Ew.
away for 2 months and with my friends and beguile my virginity. And then she comes home and then she's like, okay, I'm ready. And then he dispatches her to the Lord.
AKA.
Can I say that?
No.
Then he dispatches her to the Lord. Oh my gosh, literally.
Yeah. And that just means that he sacrificed his daughter.
Yeah.
So this story is so upsetting, obviously. And I was listening recently to Bible scholar Pete Enns talk about this on his podcast, The Bible for Normal People. It's really fun to listen to, actually, but this part was not fun. But he describes about how, in ancient Near East culture, oath swearing was the most important thing you can do. I think the Wild West movies were like, my word is my oath or whatever. I'm a man of my word.
Yeah.
But like a million times that you did not, an oath was a covenant. So it's very possible that in the midst of him making this promise, he either like sacrificed something or cut his own hand so that he could. I mean, it was a blood oath. It was a promise to God. And so for him to go back on that oath would have smeared his character. And that's why even in the story, his daughter's like, look, I can't ask you to go back on this vow because it'll.
I would just leave and then never come back.
So that does not make this any less upsetting to me.
Right.
It does give me some sort of an explanation to like the thought and reasoning. But for me, this story is all about pride and narcissism.
Yes.
Jephthah wanted glory. And he wanted it, even though God was already going to give him the victory. The Spirit of God was already on him. But he had to he wanted the glory of saying, like, I promised God I would give, something to God, and this is what God gave me. Like, Jephthah had made this happen. And then he lost his only daughter. The only meaningful thing that has come out of the story, in my opinion, is that Jephthah's unnamed daughter is memorialized for generations to come, and it becomes part of their rituals to take young women out and to go away to remember Jephthah's daughter and the fact that she was sacrificed. So anyway, the Bible is not for the faint of heart.
Nope.
Moving on to chapter 12. And I'm glad we get here because the men of Ephraim are really mad again. They're so sad. They're butthurt, as our notes say.
Oh my goodness. And this is just so sassy and weird. This whole who will be executed and who won't in this chapter. Yikes.
Jephthah didn't call Ephraim to come and throw down with him.
No.
And honestly, it makes me wonder, were they really lame, or were they
Probably.
the weenie tribe or something? Because why don't they ever call them to come help? Jephthah he only judged for 6 years.
Yep.
Ugh.
It's the Bible says.
That's probably for the best. So we go into Judges chapter 13 all the way through 16, and this is the most. To me, the most famous story in Judges, right?
It is, yeah.
Samson.
Love it.
And chapter 13 covers Samson's birth. But first, say it with us. The Israelites again did what was evil in the sight of the Lord.
And thus the story begins. Samson's mom was barren, but there's this angel that shows up. And of course, this is Samson's mom, which I thought, because I was like, this angel didn't say, do not be afraid. She was just like, what's up?
Do you want a baby?
I really love this story. But then we have you're going to have a baby, and here are all the do nots for Samson because he's going to be a Nazarite. Now, this goes back to Numbers. Remember that they can't do certain things.
Right.
They can't touch dead things.
Yep.
Right.
They can't drink alcohol.
Right.
Yeah. They can't cut their hair. Yeah.
And this is a vow they take, and you can take it at any point in your life. But it's pretty unusual to take it from birth.
Yeah.
He's holier.
Pop quiz. Who's the other person who was a Nazarite from birth?
Is it Hannah's son? No.
No.
Who is it?
Well, maybe actually. I was thinking New Testament.
Oh.
John the Baptist.
Oh, John the Baptist.
John the Baptist.
Oh, JB. Yeah,
JTB.
JTB.
Anyway, sorry, go ahead. So you're doing the Nazarite thing.
Nazarite.
Yeah.
So the angel's telling Angel has come to mom,
Yes.
but then her husband Manoah is like, no, I don't believe you.
Yeah, so I was like, we need some angel splaining, not a story, but angel splaining because Moana needs to hear from the
Moana.
Manoa needs to hear from
the angel.
This is why the other story was great because there was dyslexic moment in the other story and they died, but you'll have to go back and read it.
Yeah, you have to read it because it was too hard to convey.
I was really upset.
You
I was
would
like,
have been
I
killed
would
in
not,
that, just so you know.
I would not have survived. So you're welcome. So when Manoa, where are we at now? Manoa needed to hear it from the being and not his wife. It's like, qua? Why? But what's interesting is like, he asks the angel, are you the messenger from God? And the answer is, I am. Which is interesting. We don't hear that verbiage, but one other place.
Yeah.
Right.
Or in the Old that we
in the
read
Old
so
Testament,
far.
yeah.
And where was that? It was
In the burning bush.
Who I am.
where God says, I am. And then he continues like, no, I really want to know your name. And then in verse 18, the messenger of the Lord, the angel of the Lord,
Yeah, exactly.
says, my name is too wonderful for you to know. And I'm like, And then like he has this aha
just too
moment.
cool
It's like,
for you.
oh, this is a holy messenger. And then the one who needed the explanation that didn't believe the wife was like, we're gonna die. And his wife was like, chill. If we were gonna die, we would already been dead.
Right.
It's all good.
We may have said this previously, but when the messenger or the angel of the Lord comes and begins to speak, and then kind of it transfers into like first person God speaking, that would be like when a king sends an ambassador to read an edict. So they're like, this is a message from the king, but then they start reading in first person. So that's how like God is speaking to these people in first person, but sometimes through an angel or a messenger. So, but this story, this whole story about Samson, the setup is meant to help us orient in our mind that Samson is going to be a hero. He's going to be the good guy in this story. We've got a mother who is barren, a special angelic annunciation. We've got this powerful Nazaritic vow from birth, but the story continues.
Oh, yeah.
Chapter 14, we've got Samson fallen in love.
And some riddles as well. I mean...
First of all, he's spoiled rotten.
Well,
I just
yeah.
wonder, like, did he get everything that he wanted growing up?
Well, have you ever met children who are like the only child to parents who were older when they had them? It's like
Yes.
grandparents raising
It's
children.
like, you
Yeah.
get everything. And then he's like, I see this woman and I want her to be my wife. And his dad's like, can't you find anybody in our tribe? You know, that's kind of their practice,
Yeah.
right? Or our people.
Right.
And he's like, no, I want that one.
So he marries her. Yeah.
Well, they court first. So first he goes down to meet her, and then on the way to meet her, he sees this lion, and he rips this lion in half. Just
goodness.
kills it.
I mean, to be fair, it was a lion cub, so whatever.
Probably wasn't as cool as we think it was.
Don't destroy my childhood.
I'm sorry.
I'm reliving my childhood.
Fair.
right now.
Okay, go ahead.
So it's this massive, big behemoth of a lion.
Oh, sure. Full size.
Rips it in half, and then goes and courts this lady, and then is like, I kind of like her. Then he goes back home, but then comes back to marry her.
Yeah.
What has happened?
And when he comes back, the corpse of the lion is still there, and honeybees have made like a hive.
Yeah, they
and
have.
It's full of honey. So this man's man, I'm just saying, goes over, grabs some of the honey, and eats it as a walking snack.
Look,
Yeah.
I've always thought this was
road trips are
bananas.
make you hungry.
Because like then there's a riddle that comes with it.
Yeah.
But like he's the only one that would know the riddle.
I know.
No
It's
one
just-
else was there,
No.
dude.
Also, like he touched a dead lion, so
Yeah,
is there
so-
not like an uncleanliness thing going on
Right.
here?
Yeah, because he takes the honey back to his mom and pops and is like, here you go, eat some of this.
And then after they can't get the riddle, well, the wife talks him into telling her the answer to the riddle.
Mm-hmm.
And then she tells the other people, and then they figure it out, and he's mad about it because he's like, you told them.
Spoiled.
Yeah.
He's like,
dare
I'm
you.
going home. Well, then he goes home, and then like they think that he left his wife.
Yeah. This was bizarre.
And gives her to his best friend or his best man or whatever it
Yeah.
was.
A companion.
Here you go, friend.
I'm done.
I'm done.
Well, his father did that though, which is
Oh, okay.
so he comes back and he's like, "Whoa, why is my wife with that guy. And his father's like, we had no idea that you would ever come back. This whole story is like, what?
I know. It's yikes.
So Samson gets real mad and he starts setting fire. He's setting fire to homes.
Right.
He's tying foxtails
he's
together
like, you know
and
what?
setting fire to the foxtails, and the foxes run in with their
He's
tails
so
on
mad
fire.
about this. He's like,
Yikes.
listen, I'm about to do something.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be my fault. It's going to be y'all's fault. I'm innocent of my actions. It's like, I will do this without blame is what it says. I'm
Yeah.
like, what?
Yeah.
Well, the Philistine finds out that it was him reacting for what happened to his wife. And so they actually took her and her father and they burnt them.
Set him on fire.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Chase wrote, play with fire and your wife will get burned.
I mean,
Like Samson, right?
that's
Okay.
yeah.
Delilah and Samson fall in love.
They did.
LUV. And Delilah was asked by the ruler of the Philistines to find out Samson's weakness because he's been terrorizing the Philistines for a bit now. So, and they offer her money. My guess also is that she doesn't really have much of a choice here.
Like 1,100 pieces of silver has to be like a fortune.
Sure. Also, I'm guessing that they would have killed her if she'd said no.
It's
Right.
like, I'm going to make
Oh,
you.
yeah.
I'm gonna
I
make
mean,
you
they-
offer
or
you
other
can't
things.
They
refuse.
burned the last woman alive. So, well, I don't
is
know if
true.
she was alive, but they did burn her. So, anyway, so Delilah is like, honey, I know, like, we haven't talked about this, but if you could just tell me how your biceps got so big, that's all. I just want to know
Proteins
you
and
more.
reps.
Yeah, creatine. Anyway, so he's like, "Oh, sure, sweetheart," and he tells her this weird story, and she sets him up, and the Philistines come in, and he breaks whatever restraints were on him, and he's like, "Ha ha, gotcha."
The bowstrings.
The bowstrings. And so then she does it again. Honey, if you love me, you just tell me. I just want to
Yeah.
know you. And he's like, yeah, sure. And 2 more times he gives her these like fake stories, these fake scenarios. She sets him up. As soon as he's tied up, the Philistines pop in, but snap go the, new ropes or whatever.
Yeah.
And the Philistines are in the room. I mean, this is so mind-boggling to
He's
me.
embodying the actions and reactions of the Israelites over like decades.
Yeah, you're right.
It's like, oh, I forgot.
I forgot. Yeah, you're right. That's really good. So 4th time's the charm. She breaks him down. It says she like badgered him to death. Honestly,
That nagging woman.
yeah. Ugh. Anyway, I mean, okay. So he gives in and he tells her, and this is what's mind-boggling to me. It's like he knows exactly what's going to happen. The trap has been set thrice. And now this is the 4th time. And so she sets him up,
Full nuance.
shaves his head, which is what he said was the key to his strength, shaves his hair, and the Philistines pop in. He's captured, mutilated, imprisoned.
Like,
No more
put out
eyeballs.
his eyes with their thumbs.
Oh, gosh.
They did.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah.
So he goes, into the main temple and city. He's like on a grain mill or something. I don't even know. He's doing manual labor, but his hair starts to grow back. And as his hair grows back, his strength begins to return. And you would think that there's this moment of like self-awareness and realization and, like I have not done things the way that God probably originally
Yeah, no.
intended, but here's my opportunity to redeem myself. But not really.
But no.
So everybody, all the Philistines have gotten together in their temple for this huge festival, and they brought Samson in so that they could like make fun of him.
Yeah.
He's this previous superhero is now blind and incapacitated, and so he prays to God and he says, "Give me one more chance, return my strength." And he has somebody place him between 2 of the pillars in the temple.
Die with the Philistines.
And then, but then he's like, "Let me die so that I can get revenge on them," which is like, well, that wasn't exactly what God wanted. But
Right.
nevertheless, he puts his hands in between them. He knocks the temple pillars down. The whole temple caves in, and he killed a couple thou Philistine that day.
It's a reminder that you could pray that God lead you in directions and not be like, God, give me this.
Yeah.
Because you might get what you want. Let's see if you want what you get.
There were
Exactly.
some precious moment wall paintings at BBFUMC back in the day where, they were themed. And there was one of Samson, and he's like pushing the pillars,
Oh,
but
goodness.
he has Band-Aids on his eyeballs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my goodness.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've always seen like he's got like a white bandage around his head, but then there's like blood draining down. I'm sure they
Like,
just
this
drained
is
and drained.
precious moments
Yeah.
in a kid's hallway.
It's
Look
so
how
sad.
cute it is.
You know,
Wow.
the end of the story and the moral of the story is that Samson started off to be like the one that would deliver the people. Very similar to Moses. And later on, we'll see some glimpses of John the Baptist. But Samson did not deliver on any of the promises. He did not follow God, and everybody died around him.
Right.
So, okay. He was the judge for 20 years. And
It's the longest run for. Was that the longest run?
No.
No.
no, a couple
peace
of them did 23 for a while.
okay.
Yeah.
And then
It's still a
80,
good run.
80 years of peace in the very beginning.
That's right.
That's right. And then it's like sections of 40 years.
It's actually gotten shorter and shorter.
foretelling.
So Judges 17 through 21 have like actually some really random stories I'm not
Yes.
sure I'd ever had before or heard before. You've got Micah and the Levite. Micah stole silver from his mother, but then he admits to it and gives it right back. And so she blesses him. And then she takes the silver, dedicates it to the Lord. And in honor of the Lord, she makes an idol for Micah. What?
In my weird notes, it says Micah's homemade religion.
Yes.
Micah makes his own shrine,
He does.
complete with household gods and a private priest. He
Is
hires.
Micah the first cult leader?
Oh, maybe.
Okay, I
Yeah.
need Anita Diamante to make a movie
Yes.
off of this and a book.
Yeah, he hires a wandering Levite. He creates his personal religious center,
Yep.
which is against the Israelite law. I mean,
Yeah.
cult.
I had to say, like, this whole story had me doing the blinking guy meme. Do you know what I'm
just-
talking about? No, like, the blinking
yeah,
guy.
like why? No, I know what you're talking
yeah,
about.
Yeah, exactly. So I said maybe this just illustrates how off base everyone is at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Except then a little bit later, the Micah's Levite's going to show back up.
Yep.
So then in chapter 18, we've got the migration of Dan. Again, we start, instead of saying Israel didn't do what was right in the eyes, or did evil in the eyes of the Lord, now we just keep talking about how Israel doesn't have a king. They did not have a king. And so Dan also did not get their inheritance yet, the tribe of Dan. I thought that was interesting. And so this is where Micah's Levite comes up. Dan has sent in some spies because they want some of that land that they were promised, this whole promised land situation. So they take the Levite, they take all the idols, and then they go in to this city called Laish. And they overthrow the city, destroy it, then rebuild the city, and they set up their idols there.
Yeah.
I mean, what
We've
in the
been
world?
there, right?
Yes, Tel
Yeah.
Dan.
Yeah.
It
was really pretty.
It was probably the oldest place that we had. Well, no, I guess Jericho was the oldest place,
Yeah.
but we didn't get to really go into the city of
It's like
Jericho.
little creeks and stuff. I remember
Yes.
that. It was neat.
And that's also where there's the Dan Stele, I think is how you say that, where it has the only extra biblical reference to King David.
Yeah.
Oh.
Anyway, fun fact. And there was that really big gate. Do you remember that was on one of the highways that Abraham would have passed through?
I
You don't
don't
remember that?
remember this.
They had it covered. They had excavated. It was really beautiful.
Oh, wait. Yes, I do. Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, chapter 19, I do want to offer a brief,
yikes.
like extra just content warning. This story hurts my stomach.
It is the worst.
And so just know that it's coming. Chapter 19 is the Levite's concubine. Again, there is no king for Israel. And I wonder if they start using this language as opposed to Israel did what was evil in the sight of the Lord to really to hammer in and to hone in on the fact that Israel does not have a king and is therefore, at least based on the surrounding tribes, sort of illegitimate. They're not a real nation if they don't have a king. But then also, they were supposed to be following God as their king. And if they had been following God, they wouldn't have done all these evil things.
Yeah. Ugh.
And so the Levites, remember, were the tribe that housed all the priests. Not every Levite is a priest, but every priest is a Levite. So there's a little bit of honor and holiness expected from this tribe. And this story just goes to show how off the rails the entire
Yes.
Israelite identity had fallen. So a Levite took his concubine, and and this also is confusing because it constantly refers to him as her husband, but to her as his concubine. So I know
she
that
was less than, though.
obviously,
she was, yeah,
obviously, but there's a binding there. It's not a side piece. This is like his woman. But she doesn't want to be with him. So she goes back home to her parents and tries to seek refuge there. But he goes to find her and he tries to take her back home. But the father delays. And this goes on for days. He's like, one more snack, one more meal, one more drink.
Let's get some bread.
Maybe just a cigarette more,
Yes.
And so finally he's like, nah, I'm taking her. We're leaving. And so they have to stop on the way home. And they're real careful about where they stop because they want to only stop in Israel's territory. And so they find a friendly Benjamite, and he invites the Levite in. And as soon as the Levite and his concubine get in the home, evil men from the city come to the gate of the home and demand that the Levite be sent out so that they can have sex with him.
This is like, is it Genesis 19?
Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yeah,
it's very much a replay of this story. And only without the divine intervention of the previous story.
Right.
So the owner of the house is like, well, hospitality, again, remember, is such a big deal, but really only for men, as we can see. Because the owner of the house is like, I will not send my guest out. But he does offer his own daughter and the concubine. And the men are like, no, we just want the Levite. Again, remember, this is not about attraction, same-sex attraction or attraction at all. This is about power. This is about subjugating and humiliating someone. That is what rape is about.
Yes.
So anyway, the Levite, wanting to diffuse the situation, sends out his concubine. And she is out with these evil men all night long. And by the morning, she is back at the doorstep, battered and unresponsive. So I'm going to leave the story there. The rest of the story actually just made me feel sick.
It is awful.
And it's very upsetting, and it defines the utter depravity of these people who were supposed to be God's people, who were supposed to be a light unto the nations, a blessing to those who are around them. And what we see in this story is that they had become just like the people around them, and maybe in some cases worse.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. This is a travesty.
I don't like how, you can read how it ends, but he commanded the men with him and saying, thus shall you say to all the Israelites, has such a thing ever happened since the day that the Israelites came up from the land of Egypt until this day? Consider it, take counsel, and speak out.
Yeah, I know. This guy.
Yeah.
This guy?
I know.
Did that?
I loved that he said, say something, but I'm like, where were you?
Yeah, where were you? Ugh,
so
the worst.
That is, though, I'm glad you read that last line. My translation said, say something. And this reminds me, before we enact harm or before we passively let harm happen to someone, that is when we should be saying something. Yeah. Moving on to chapter 20, there is retribution for the concubine. Remember that they were in the tribe of Benjamin's territory. So all of Israel, when they hear the message of the Levite, they come to his defense and the concubine's defense. They attack the Benjamites. They are defeated. The towns are burned, and everything and everyone, even the animals, are slain. Mm-hmm. And there is this vindication, but it also makes me think it did not have to be this way.
It did not have to happen. Not at all. This is awful.
And then the chapter 21 perpetuates this.
Yep.
Speaking of, this did not have to happen. They do feel bad. They don't want the tribe of Benjamin to go extinct because Benjamin was one of Israel's 12 sons. And so, but there's only men left in the tribe. Yeah. So they offer some of the women from that had well, how does this part of the story go? Basically, they provide some women for them, but it's not a great story, and we can just, I guess, skip on past it.
Okay.
Do you want to say something about it?
I was going to say it's not like 7 Brides for 7 Brothers,
no,
where they go out and they get the women to marry. It's way worse than that.
Oh, it's terrible. Yeah. And it reminds us at the end of chapter 21. Go ahead.
There were I guess there was a few, maybe in a mixed tribe. So it says the whole congregation sent word to Benjaminites who were at the rock of Rimmon and proclaimed peace to them. Benjamin returned at that time and gave them the women whom they have saved alive.
Okay.
Of the women of Jabesh Gilead.
Yeah.
But they did not.
So maybe the tribe of Benjamin had like taken captive some women from another place, but they had been in their tribe?
Yeah. So the elders of the congregation said, "What shall we do for the wives for those who are left, since there are no women left in Benjamin?" They said there must be heirs. There must be heirs for the survivors of Benjamin in order that the tribe might not be blotted out.
Yeah.
Women were just cattle.
Commodities.
Yeah.
Once again, it reminds us that in those days, Israel had no king and everyone did as they saw fit.
Yeah.
I have to say, I'm done with Judges.
Yeah, me too.
I'm very looking forward to finishing, to moving on to Ruth this morning.
Love Ruth.
Yeah. Whew. Deep breath. In Ruth chapter 1, this is like the best story.
It is so great. It's a wonderful story.
Well, chapter 1's not great. It ends well though.
Yeah.
Chapter 1 is sad, but less for the like traumatizing reasons as the entire book of Judges. But Naomi is a woman from Israel, and her husband, they moved to Moab. Was there a famine? Is that why they moved to Moab? Anyway, they moved to Moab for reasons, and they have these 2 sons, and their sons find wives among the Moabite women. And the wives were named Ruth and Orpah. Fun fact, Oprah Winfrey's mother wanted to name her after Orpah, but switched the letters, and that's how we got
R
Oprah.
and the P. Yep.
Anyway, so Naomi's husband dies while they're in Moab, and then a little while later, so do her sons. And this is really sad for obviously emotional reasons, but also because it leaves Naomi childless, husbandless, and eventually destitute. So she finds out that in the midst of this famine or drought or whatever was going on, that there is food back in Israel. So she says, ladies, I love you. I'm going to go home to my people. You go home to your families, and we will all just wish each other well and move on. So they're all like standing there crying, holding each other. But Orpah kisses Naomi and then goes home.
Yeah.
But Ruth clings to her. And this is where we get that beautiful, the beautiful phrasing that sometimes gets read at weddings, which is a little bit funny because it's a daughter-in-law to a mother-in-law. But nevertheless, she says, "I am not leaving you. Where you go, I will go. Where you stay, I stay. Your people are my people. Your God, my God." And that's sometimes where I hear the quote end, but I love where it goes on. It says, "Where you die, I will die. And where you are buried, I will be buried." Ruth is saying, I will be with you till the end.
Yeah.
So Naomi's like, fine, whatever. And then she goes back home and her relatives see her and they're like, Naomi. And she's like, actually, you can call me Mara because I am bitter. I am bitter. I would be bitter.
I get it, but we don't call her Mara. So like when you turn the page,
Oh,
I was
I know.
like, Naomi. Wait, I thought she was Mara. What's going on?
Oh, I
There
know.
are so many instances in scripture where something dramatic happens in someone's life and either God gives them a new name or
Yeah.
they get
Or they
a
do.
new name. And so like with people today and they're going through something big in their life and realizing who they are, sometimes they change their name too.
That's true.
And it's a great and a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
But nobody calls her by her name.
No, not in this story.
I think in
It's
this
like a
case,
lighter moment when we're just like, call me silly.
I don't think that's what this was.
No, like major moments like I have a new name.
Oh, yeah.
Versus minor moments like call me silly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I got you.
And
Yeah.
everybody's like, no, we're still gonna call you Chase.
Yeah. Yeah. I do think, a couple things. Maybe they were just like rude people that were like, we're not listening to you. I think also they could see like she was in such a bad spot that they understood the depths of her grief and despair.
Yeah, it was a lot.
But we're like, you're still Naomi, and you're still going to be Naomi to us. So they move back. There's a little bit of so when a person is widowed in ancient Israelite culture, and when they don't have sons, then they can be stranded financially, but there's an option for a distant male relative to redeem them, what's called redeeming them and being their
Kinsman redeemer.
kinsman redeemer. That's exactly right. And what that means is that they can pull their female relative out of financial destitution and make sure that she's taken care of. So, I mean, this is what was the right thing to do.
Right.
I'm not sure that it was required by law, but certainly heavily suggested. But so in that town, there's a man named Boaz who is Naomi's kinsman redeemer. But Boaz is a little younger than Naomi.
Yeah.
Maybe he's like a younger cousin, you know? So Naomi's like, well, maybe you guys could get together.
That's right. They're not related. Ruth and Boaz aren't.
Ruth and Boaz are not related.
Okay.
No.
There we go.
And so, but they also have to do the gleaning, which we see this in the law that you have to leave your fields, the corner of your fields ungleaned so that, widows, foreigners, and who's the
early form of welfare.
Yeah, exactly. So that they could come and glean a little bit for themselves just to keep sustained. So that's what Naomi's doing, and Boaz sees her, and there's like a little bit of a meet cute.
Ooh,
yeah.
It's a love connection.
He's like, I think she's kind of cute. And he's like talking to his workers, and they're like, she gleans like she knows nobody's business. And he's like, I like that about her.
Can glean.
He's like, go ahead and throw some extra grain down there and let her pick it up. If you know what I'm saying? And so they do.
Yeah.
And so, there's this hope then that they'll have enough because of Boaz's very nice field, but also that maybe there will be a deeper connection there, and that if Naomi knows that if Boaz and Ruth can get together, it'll kind of close the family circle.
What kind of field was this?
I don't know. A field? Oh, a field of
I
wheat?
think it was
Wheat?
corn.
No, wheat.
Yeah.
They didn't have corn.
Well, God makes corn,
Corn was in the Americas.
and corn makes whiskey.
Oh, dear God. Okay.
And when we read chapter 3,
Okay.
it gets a little frisky.
Okay. I hate that. I hate what you did there. Okay, chapter 3. Something is going down on the threshing floor.
Whoa.
And I'm not just talking about wheat and chaff.
Let's get down to the threshing floor.
So this is a really interesting story. There is a level of seduction that's going on here.
Yeah.
We don't get the details
A level.
as which I think is appropriate via the Bible.
Yeah.
But this is not just like a friendly midnight encounter.
We get more details in other
That's a-
stories, and they're pretty kind of vague.
But the good news is that Boaz is very interested. And
Very much so.
so he's like, listen, I am all in on this, except I do happen to know that there's another possible kinsman redeemer, and I am not next in line. So we need to talk to him first. And if he takes a pass on it, like, let's go. So Boaz goes and talks to the other guardian redeemer, kinsman redeemer. And at first he's like, no, I definitely want this. And he's like, well, you have to make children with this person. He's like, oh, never mind. That's going to mess up my inheritance. So he's like, Boaz, you can go for it. And so they trade sandals, because apparently trading chacos was the method of legalizing transactions back in the day.
Oh,
I know, right? And so Ruth and Boaz get married. And this is like one of the few biblical stories where husband and wife seem to genuinely have affection
they
for
like
each other. Yeah, it's beautiful. The story ends beautifully. Not that way. Because Ruth and Boaz have a son named Obed, and actually also becomes Naomi's adopted son, but also / grandson. That's for
really sweet.
That's for inheritance purposes.
Yes.
But then they have this one little line at the end of the book that says that Obed was the father of Jesse, who was the father of David, who would be king.
You're getting into it.
And exactly. And we see how Ruth is folded in to the family of Jesus. Ruth is the third out of 5 women mentioned in Jesus' genealogy, alongside Tamar, who we've read about, Rahab, who we've read about, and Bathsheba, who we will read about, and finally, of course, Mary.
And
So she went from Moabite, foreigner, widow, no options, to in the line of Christ.
Amazing.
Pretty amazing. Guess who didn't get in the line of Christ? Anybody from Judges.
That's right. There's
Jeez.
some really cool righteous women.
I'm sure that's not true.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are people from Judges, but I will not acknowledge them here.
man.
Y'all, we have done it. We're done with this day.
We're done.
Hopefully there's some heavy editing that goes on here, but we appreciate y'all hanging with us. And also, there are times when reading the Bible feels pretty complicated. And the stories
Yes.
are not, we can't clean up these stories and make them nice and pretty with a bow, because that's not what they were intended for. But they are important because they remind us either who we are or what God has been trying for all of history to save us from. So, any other final thoughts?
Don't do what is evil in the sight of God.
For heaven's sake, don't do it.
Don't. Not at all.
Just stop.
Virginia, any
That's
other
it.
thoughts?
I mean, no, that's it. This is a lot.
Yeah.
I love the beginning with the story of Jael, but yikes.
Yeah. All right. Remember, Jesus loves you. It's not
not
complicated.
complicated.
See you next week.
Bye.